Okay, it's recording now, so that's fine. And then what I'm going to do is share my screen. You should have now received this, see if it's sharing my screen. Okay, can you see my Word document on your side? Can
No,
you?
Prof, I
Okay,
cannot.
you
No,
can't.
no, I
Okay.
can't see it. No,
Okay, let
thank
me
you.
just, I think I clicked on the wrong one. There we are. You should see it now.
Yes,
Can you see it?
yes,
Okay,
I can.
great.
Yes.
Great. So you should have received a copy of this. This is your study material for this module. It's got an introduction. It's got some pre-course preparation, and it's got a whole lot of activities that you need to do, right? Some of it we've done, like we've done the introduce yourself activity on Saturday and so on. But these activities in the past, we used to assess them, right? But now these are not for assessment purposes. These are for you to build towards that final handbook that you're going to submit as your exam equivalent assessment. Okay, so now you can do the activities in your own time and at your own pace. You can post it up on Moodle so that I can check it and give you comments, right? But it's not for assessment purposes. It's just little homework that you will do. Some of it involves readings. So you're going to read, for example, if you look at activity 1.1, it asks you to create a mind map of the aspects of postgraduate supervision you can think of. So you can just do a freehand drawing, write down postgraduate supervision and everything that comes into mind, right? You can reflect on your intention in participation in this module. The Chatham House rules we spoke about on Saturday, that's where if you're referring to any specific people, you don't mention names. So that was activity 1.1. Then the introduction we did in class. Then you'll see activity 1.3 is based on the doctoral success, and it gives you an article that you got to read. And as you read that article, you need to note down 2 comments and 2 questions that you have regarding that article, right? And then this is just showing you a mind map, an example of a mind map, what it looks like, because in activity 1.2, you have to do a mind map. And yeah, and the introduce yourself, we've done that one there. So that's basically activity 1.1 and 1.3. Then activity 1.4 deals with the roles and responsibilities. There's a questionnaire that you got, there's a questionnaire of supervision's roles and responsibilities that you need to look at. You can just look at it and write a brief discussion on it. Um, Oh, you can discuss the questionnaire on Moodle. If you have any questions about that, you can just get in touch with me on Moodle, or you can just email me and we'll go through that. But it's not, like I explained to you, it's not for assessment. It's more just to help you learn more beyond what we discuss in class, so that you can build this, use all these little aspects that you learn and build it up to make your final handbook, right? Then activity 1.5 is on the memorandum of understanding. There's a presentation, there's a link to a presentation there, and you read the MOU. And then if you do not have an existing MOU at your institution, you can use the UJ1 and you can post comments on anything that you would change on that memorandum of understanding. Now, remember, the memorandum of understanding is an important document. That's that initial student supervisor agreement that you must have. And then it's just talking about we spoke about keeping records. So activity 1.6 has a presentation on the role of a supervisor. It also has the link to an article which you can read, and then as you go through the presentation and the articles, you need to consider what may affect supervision in the African context. That's in terms of talking about supervising African students. What are the challenges, in particular South African students? And then there's that supervision questionnaire, which we spoke about, the memorandum of understanding we spoke about. Okay, so these are all the activities which you can do in your own time to help you build your the way in which you're going to construct your final handbook. Okay, so those are the activities which you needed to do. Then I want to draw your attention to assignment 1, because that's the one that you need to hand in for assessment. What you're going to do in assignment 1 is you're going to reflect on everything that you learned in unit 1 and identify the 5 most meaningful things you've learned in unit 1. And then I want you to highlight the challenges you face in supervising students in a South African context, and how you would use the 5 most meaningful learnings you've had to address these challenges. So that's what I'd like to see you do in assignment 1. So the activities that you're going to do are going to help you for that assignment, because there are some presentations and articles on supervising in an African context. The length of the assignment is just 1 to 5 pages. So all you're going to do is identify 5 most important things you've learned in Unit 1, elaborate a bit on them, and then look at some of the challenges that one encounters in supervising in a South African context and say how you would use these 5 aspects that you've learned to address that, right? So that is your assignment 1, which is due on the 19th of May. So let me just go down. I just want to scroll down to the rubric to show you how the assignment is going to be assessed. I did explain to you on Saturday that there's going to be 4 assignments, 1 per unit, and they're each going to count 10% towards your final mark. So I'm just scrolling down a bit, because basically on Saturday we did cover everything we needed to do in Unit 1. So now I'm just telling you what's expected for the assignment, and you can go through the activities which will help you build up towards this assignment and your final handbook. So the 2 criteria that I'm going to use to mark your assignment is I'm going to look at how you've engaged with the prescribed literature. So I'm going to mark your assignment out of 20, right? And so there's going to be 10 marks allocated for your engagement with the literature, all the prescribed literature that we've given you for the activities, and also at the end of Unit 1. Then I'm going to look at how your writing is critically focused and how you argue your points based on what you've learned in the literature. So I'm going to allocate 10 marks for that. Now, basically, your assignment is going to be marked out of 20, and it's going to be scaled down to a mark of 10 to make it count 10% of your final mark. So basically, if you want to score a mark of between 9 and 10 for your engagement with the literature, you got to show critical awareness of the concepts that are discussed in the literature, any limitations, any problems with concepts that you pick up in the literature, any different understandings of the concepts and different positions that you can pick up in the literature, okay? So that's what you must do if you want to score a mark of 9 or 10 for engagement with the literature. If you draw substantively on the literature and some extra readings and show a good understanding of the concepts, then you'll only get a mark of 6, 7, or 8 out of 10. And then let's not look at level 1 or 2, because from engaging with you, I think you are a 6 plus, okay? So that's what really you're aiming for, to score a mark between 6 and 10 for engagement with the literature. Then the second criteria is the critical and the focused argument, right? So basically what we're looking for here is clear, justified arguments in your own voice. If you want to score a mark of 9 or 10, you show evidence of managing complex or different positions and arguments. So you take different arguments from the literature and you are able to use these arguments and criticize them in your own voice, right? And also you get score this mark for excellent presentation and language. And then if you want to score a 6, 7, or 8, there's obviously less effort. You show justification, you write in your own voice. There's coherent structure, but it's not as intensive and critically discussed, okay? So those are the criteria. The other ones we're not going to look at. And this is basically the criteria that I'm going to use to assess all your assignments, okay? So the way forward here is just work through your activities. You can post up your answers to your activities on Moodle. If you want any comments from me, I can log in and give you feedback, but the activities themselves are not for assessment. It's that assignment 1 that is for assessment. And I'm basically going to use this assignment rubric to mark all of your assignments. Okay, do you have any questions for me at this stage, Glynis?
No, Prof, no questions. Thank you.
Okay, so you're clear about what needs to be done, and you should have that document. Have they given you that document?
Prof, I'm actually no, I haven't, but I will find it because I'm not able to just extract it on Moodle. But I've emailed them and they're usually quite responsive, so I think I'll
Okay,
have it.
ask them
Yes.
to email it to you because I sent an updated version to them on Saturday. So they
Okay.
have it and they'll be able to share it with you. So that's your activities you can do in your own time. And whenever you need my feedback on any of them, if just in case I don't look at Moodle, right? Then what I will do is I will quickly just go on to Moodle and check them for you and give you comments. Unfortunately, there's no other students in the class. Otherwise, you could all engage with each other on Moodle, but it's only you. So if you need any feedback on your activities, just tell me. That they just meant to guide you towards that first assignment and that final handbook that you're going to prepare. Okay, now let me just make a start then with Unit 2. So let's see how far we can get with Unit 2 today. And then we can take things from there. So I'm just going to put it on a slideshow. Okay, are you able to see my slides?
Yes, I can see it, Prof.
Okay, all right. So what we did in Unit 1 is we basically unpacked what postgraduate supervision involves. What does it mean? What are the roles and the responsibilities of the student and the supervisor? So now when we come to Unit 2, what we're going to cover is what's the difference between a master's and a doctorate. Now, it's important for you to know this when you are supervising, because the way in which you will guide a master's student and the way in which you will prepare a master's student is different from the way in which you prepare a doctorate student. So it's important for you to familiarize yourself with the expected outcomes of each degree, what is expected for a master's and what is expected for a doctorate. And related to that, we look at the research competencies. So, sorry, because this is research that's more, these are studies that are mostly research based. We're basically looking for what kind of research competencies are we looking for? What do we expect of a master's as opposed to a PhD students? And remember now, a master's student is going to produce a dissertation, but a PhD student is going to produce a thesis. So it's important that you understand what's the difference between a thesis and a dissertation, right? Now, we get different levels of postgraduate students. So typically we define a postgraduate student as either an honors, a master's, or a doctoral students. Okay? Some universities like to still consider the honors as undergraduate, but nowadays, because the honors students do undertake a research project or a mini research project, they are considered to be postgraduate students. So I want to now give you a few minutes to think about what is the difference between a master's, and a doctoral student, or what do you think is the difference? So let's give you about 10 minutes to think about that, and then we will continue the discussion.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, are you winning there, Glynis?
Yes, Prof. Winning in a sense of I've given it some thought. Would you like me to share or?
Yes, if you're ready, you can share with me.
Okay. All right. Sort of my reflections is that an honors degree, in a way, it's like the fourth year. It allows, and I mean, I accept an honors as postgraduate. I also have done that as a postgraduate, but it allows for more theoretical specialization or subject knowledge matter in usually in the two major subject areas that a student had majored in. So it should really follow on from the major subjects of the third year. It's still very, I think an honors is still very coursework based,
Okay,
and it's
yes.
still about learning of concepts, embedding that, and it might be some honors courses might have a practical application. They might say do a small little study or do some workplace experience that counts towards that. But for me, that is my understanding. Also, in some disciplines, like in accountancy, and honors is also it's a prerequisite in order to be admitted to do board exams or for your not tutelage, but the work into the work placement that they have to do in order to become qualified as a CA down the line. The same for psychology. Obviously, without an honors, you cannot get into a master's into psychology. But I know in psychology, um, there's often quite a gap between those who complete honors and those who are actually getting admission into masters. So I think I also want to say, I think a person who wants to do an honors degree should really do the honors degree because they have an intention, I think, of an academic, either to go towards a PhD or because they require it for their professional qualification or certification. Okay, but a lot of people do go on to do the honors, and I suppose it embeds the knowledge of the subject matter. A master's degree, I think this is where you're really getting into the academics or into academic work, into understanding literature. The student familiar, I know in undergrad work and honors work, you will also get theories and different approaches to looking at your subject matter, but it is at master's level that the world opens up of research, of various theories, of literature, of research that exists on the area of study that the student is doing. I know that some master's degrees could be a full, let me use thesis or coursework with a mini thesis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is good, and maybe I think the two might have different flavors. But I think a master's degree allows you to start honing the academic qualities that is required for academic research. Um, Whereas with a PhD, for a PhD, and I'm speaking really layman's, loosely spoken, I think you develop based on theoretical research, based on that secondary, on that research, and reading, a lot of understanding various topics, various theories. You then develop your concept or your notion about a problem that you believe has merit or applicability or a contribution that could be made by solving or answering some questions around this problem, either in practice or in theory, which then you want to investigate, which is why I think PhD research sometimes is considered to be original research. I'm not sure that any research is ever quite 100% original. But I
Mm-hmm.
also think that theoretically, a PhD should make the student a knowledgeable, if not an expert,
Mm-hmm.
on at least on the question that they've tried to answer and on that subject matter. Those are my thoughts, Prof.
Okay, no, you're not far off the mark there. Yes, at honors level they will do some coursework, and that's why some people still consider it to be undergraduate. But I don't agree because it's beyond that first degree, basically. And yes, they do a mini project, which is just to introduce them to the idea of formulating a research concept and how to investigate it and compile a report. And basically, they learn the ropes of doing research at honors level. But at master's level now, it's either purely research. In some selected cases, you may have a specialized master's program where they may undertake coursework and do a mini dissertation. It all depends, right? But basically, at master's level, they got to show more competence, more mastery of techniques, and so on. But it doesn't have to be original work, although they can publish if they come across something new, right? Now, when you get to PhD level, that's a big responsibility because there you have to make an original contribution to an existing field and you have to publish at that level, right? So it varies from discipline to discipline. Some of the qualifications may have a professional bearing, some may be more research focused. It depends. But why I want you to think about this is because the way in which you guide an honors student is different from the way in which you guide a master's or a PhD. For an honors, there's a lot of hand holding. The student doesn't know a lot, so you got to take him out into the field or into the lab and show him. At master's level, you can pull your hand away a little bit, right? Show them the basics, the ropes, and then give them that freedom to think on their own. At PhD level, the supervisor should do as little hand holding as possible, although he or she should still be there to guide the student. Okay? So, what we're getting at here is different levels, different competencies that we expect, and the level of supervision should be different. Although it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes I've had to call in PhD students myself and tell them, listen, this is not right. You got to fix it. So you still guide, you still give them that direction, but the levels of independence should be different. Okay, I hope that makes some sense to you. Okay,
Yes,
so
Prof, it does. Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah, okay. I just want to go back now to my presentation. Just do that. Okay, back onto slideshow. Okay, so we've unpacked that, and what really describes the different competency is an organization known as SAQA. It stands for South African the South African Qualification Authority, right? So that's a body within the government that's come up with different level descriptors that help us understand what is expected or what kind of competencies are expected at different levels. And related to that is the National Qualification Framework. So you get different NQF levels, and each NQF level will tell you what the learning environment should be for you to allocate the qualification, or what are the competencies that you are expecting at the different NQF levels. And really, this whole process was designed in South Africa to basically sort of benchmark our qualifications both nationally and internationally. Now, very often what we do is when non-South African students apply to us for postgraduate studies, we normally ask them to get SAQA accreditation. So SAQA has to confirm that the master's or honors degree that they're coming with is equivalent to what we're offering in South Africa. So it's also a benchmarking mechanism, but The different NQF levels are meant to guide us on a couple of things. They guide us on the scope of knowledge or the knowledge literacy that the student has to have at the different levels. What sort of methods and procedures are used? What level of problem solving do you expect? How does that qualification impact on ethics and professional practice? And it provides us with guidelines on assessing the information that we need to guide the student and communicating information to the student in terms of what's required. So it puts everything into context. It enables us to manage the learning and to take accountability for it. So that's the whole purpose of the SAQA level descriptors that we get. So, okay, this is what activity 2.1 in that document tells you to do. You're given the SAQA document. There's a link that you've got to use to assess the document, and then you write a short memo on what would be important to discuss with the student regarding the level which they are proposing to work at compared to their previous level. So we're going to look at the context where a student who's completed his honors comes to you and you're providing guidelines of what is expected at master's level. Or a student who's done his master's comes to you for doctoral studies, and then how you would guide them in terms of the SAQA document and so on. And this is going to guide you in the build up of that handbook, because information on what is expected at each level should be in the handbook as well, right? So just to give you an idea of the different expected outcomes. So we spoke about the honors degree, which is actually NQF level 8. So it's got a coursework component and a research-based report. It's a full research report. Some universities do not insist on this, but I know in science we do ask them to write a full research report and they get assessed on that. In fact, for our honors students in chemistry, they have to not only submit a report, they got to submit a proposal, they get assessed on the proposal, then they do a proposal presentation, which they are assessed on, and they do a project presentation and a poster presentation. So all of that is geared towards preparing them for master's level. They got to show knowledge and engagement in their specific field. They got to also learn how to conduct research. So basically, they're at that phase where they're learning about research methodologies. Now, this can vary from discipline to discipline, but basically, when they do that research, they got to show their discipline specific knowledge. So if it's an honors in chemistry, they must show knowledge of chemistry and so on. And typically this degree is of a 1 year duration. Some institutions may allow it to go up to 2 years if the student is doing it part-time, but generally it's of a 1 year duration. So that's more or less what we expect at honors level. Now, at master's level, we did say you get the master's by research, in which case everything is purely research, and the student is assessed on the basis of a full dissertation that he or she submits. Then you get the coursework masters, where they undertake specific courses and write exams for that. And then they submit a mini dissertation or a research report, which counts towards their assessment. Now, at master's level, you expect a bit more. You expect the student to show a bit more specialized knowledge. So the student needs to be able to engage and critique current research. So they must do the literature review, read and criticize what other people have done, and look at ways in which they can conduct more advanced research in that field. They got to show some kind of technical research or mastery of a technique. Now, this can vary from discipline to disciplines, because for us scientists, it's usually lab techniques that they got to show a mastery of. But in other disciplines, like in statistics, where there's more questionnaires and qualitative stuff, they may just show mastery of certain research techniques. They obviously have to show some language competence. So obviously that dissertation that they're going to submit has to be nicely written. I've put a question mark next to scholarly research because scholarly research relates to publications. At master's level, you don't expect a student to publish or do original research, but at the same time, if they do produce a publication, that's a bonus. And it puts them in a good stead to proceed to doctoral studies and to get bursaries and so on. It also, sort of at our faculty now, what we do is we award masters with distinctions. So if they're a borderline case for a distinction, we can consider the fact as to whether they've published to grant that distinction, because at our institution, they do allocate a mark for the master's dissertation, and they need to show some evidence in their dissertation of a coherence and a justifiable conclusion based on their results. The master's degree is typically of a 2-year duration, okay? And it's NQF level 9. So you can see we're moving one level up from the honors. Now we come to the doctoral degree, which is NQF level 10, and that's where you get a doctoral study by compilation of the thesis, and this is where original contribution of knowledge is the key focus. So there has to be publications, okay? And the format on which the thesis takes could actually be a standard essay thesis, which is introduction, literature review, research methods, results chapters, and then the conclusions, right? Or you could get a thesis by compilation of publications. So basically, they write the introduction, put in the literature review, put paper 1 to however number of papers they've published, and at the end, just put a conclusion, right? Now, this thesis by compilation is a bone of contention because it's something that can be good in the sense of producing publications, but depending on the requirements, the number of publications that are required by the time of submission, it can delay the student as well. At PhD level, we expect an extensive literature review, so there has to be a lot of critical discussion, right? So they have to look at the literature, look at what's been done, what's not been done, where the knowledge gaps, and build the original knowledge on that. So you were quite right in saying that it's not completely new concepts. It's basically we take existing knowledge and we build on it. Now, typically a PhD degree has a 3 to 4 year duration. But the sad part is 47% of South African students actually complete this in 7 years. And that's because they have challenges, right? Some of them have financial challenges, so they go away, they give it up, and they come back. Some of them are working and doing it part-time, and that prolongs things. So it's actually sad to say that most students do not finish in the minimum time. And if you look at the failure rate of some of the PhDs, it's between 30 and 55%. It's quite disturbing. We try to avoid it as far as possible. So that's just some statistics, just to help you understand the South African context a bit. But basically, this is what is expected at PhD level. So you can see different degrees, different NQF levels, different expectations. And these are things that we need to highlight to students when they come to undertake postgraduate studies with us. And you will keep this in mind as well when drawing up your handbook. Okay. Please stop and ask me questions. Do not be afraid. Okay, we're going to do a quick activity where I'm going to give you some time to think about what is the difference between a doctoral, an honorary doctoral, and degree, and a Nobel laureate. What's the difference between these?
Okay. Okay. Should I take a few minutes, Prof, just to?
Okay, you can take as much time you need to think about it.
Okay. All
And
right.
when
I'll
you're
I'll
ready,
get
you
back as
just
soon as.
tell me.
Yeah. Okay. Prof, because I want to avoid the temptation to Google search, because it's very tempting to do that to arrive
Yeah.
at what one would consider the right answer. Um, a doctoral is what you would do. This is the PhD that you enroll for at a university with a supervision, and you are among that less than somewhere between 55 and 45 and whatever the percentage is that passes that PhD degree. So it's an academic degree. Um, the honorary doctorate, I've always understood it that an honorary doctorate is not necessarily linked to academic qualification or academic outputs, but it is often awarded to people who to recognize them for the level of contribution they've made in a particular field, and it's normally for contributions that are probably of either often at the political level, at a social, maybe at a social justice level. That's where I've often thought honorary degrees arrive or are awarded. Then, because nowadays almost every politician is an honorary doctorate. And then, but it is a recognition from an academic institution for a certain contribution to a particular cause or yeah, and usually in society. Nobel laureates are a whole different category of people who probably are not necessarily, because obviously there are various categories of in that prize, but people who are recognized for out of, I think, selected by a very small group in Sweden and recognized from also a very small group of absolute achievers or difference makers in particular areas. Again, I think the areas of social justice, science, of course, economics, but I think the ones who are awarded in science and economics are typically people who have made breakthrough innovations in research and have then contributed those breakthrough innovations to for the greater good. Um, I think those, yeah, before I confuse myself, let me stop there, Prof.
No, actually, you've got it spot on. You're quite right in the way you're describing it, because doctoral is just a PhD degree. You go through that whole process of conducting your research and submitting your thesis. Honorary doctoral is special recognition, right? Like you said, and sometimes politicians get it. Some of them deserve it, some of them don't, but we won't go into that. And then Nobel laureate is for groundbreaking. The two scientists that developed that COVID-19 vaccine, for example, they got special recognition by winning the Nobel Prize. So it's, I would say the honorary doctorate and the Nobel laureate is beyond the PhD. It's what you can achieve beyond that. Although there's some debate about the honorary doctorate because some people who don't even have and especially if you're dealing with politicians, they don't have doctoral degrees from universities, but they still get it for special recognition. Okay, so activity 2.2 asks you to look at a list of distinguished thinkers or leaders and choose one of these leaders of your choice and write a paragraph about their accomplishments. So you can choose the ones in the study material, or you can just choose any one of your choice and write a paragraph of what were their accomplishments that made them a distinguished thinker or a leader in the context of the honorary doctorate or the Nobel laureate, right? So you can do that because you can use that in a way of, in your handbook, in a way to sort of make the student understand what the competency levels are. Or if you're writing the handbook for a novice supervisor, it guides them as to what the different levels are, right? Now, this is something we can debate, and I'm not going to spend too much time about it. Maybe you can think about it a bit, and then you can come back in the next class and we can talk about it a bit more. And that is that the doctoral education is now making a profit for the university, the candidate, and the country. It's more about that than actually developing new knowledge. Now, this quote comes from a reference by Morton, and it's debatable because if you look at the current context of universities, there's a lot of pressure to produce doctoral candidates, to produce publications. But are we achieving the real purpose of what a PhD is supposed to do? So I want you to think about that in addition to your activities, and we can discuss it a bit further when we meet again next Tuesday. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this uh, today, but just to guide you with that argument, the doctoral education has now become more a case of increased production and wealth. So the more PhD graduates you produce, the more subsistence you get from the government, provided they finish in the minimum time. And it's the more papers you produce, the better. So it's more like a business, an industry, or the term that they use is a cog in the machinery. It's more about economic production. It's like how many PhDs can you produce? How many papers can you publish? But have we lost the essence of what the doctoral education is supposed to represent in that? And to a certain extent, the doctoral education is about social class and status. It's about, I have a PhD, so I can be called a doctor. It's more social class and status, right? Now I'm going to talk about the VTE framework, and I'm going to break away from this presentation and go to your study material because that's where you will find the VTE framework. So let me just quickly go back to that. I think you can see the page, right? So
Yes, I can see.
you can see it, right? So let me just move down to the unit, scroll down to the unit 2. Oh, it's not scrolling. I don't know why. Okay, there we are. Should scroll now. Okay, so Sorry, my computer is just a bit slow today. I just don't know what's going on. It's not moving pages at all. Let me just try and see. Okay, I'm just going to unshare it and see if I can move down to that specific page, and then I'll reshare it with you. Okay, here we are. I think I've got it now. Okay, so I'm going to share it with you. There it is. Can you see it? Okay, this is the VT framework, and it's made up of 4 domains. The domain A focuses on the knowledge and the intellectual abilities. Domain B focuses on personal effectiveness. Domain C focuses on the research, governance, and organization. And lastly, Domain D works on influence and impact. Now, each of these domains can be broken down into further aspects. So if you're looking at the knowledge and intellectual abilities for each level, you got to have a knowledge base, then you got to show certain cognitive abilities at that knowledge base and a certain level of creativity. Then if we move down to domain B, when we're looking at personal effectiveness or your personal approaches, it can involve a number of things: your personal qualities, your self-management, and your professional career development. For example, you will say, now, I'm going to get myself a job at an academic institution, and I'm going to work my way up from lecturer to senior lecturer and so on. That is professional career development, okay? So that's personal development. The first case is the knowledge-based and the capabilities that you have. Then we come to the research, governance, and organization, where there has to be certain rules about professional conduct, certain rules about research management, and finance, funding, and resources. Now, generally, you can apply for your own finance or funding for research projects, or the institution can provide it. Research management is how you manage your research, how you allocate your projects to your students, how you guide them on managing their own research. Professional conduct is sort of related to ethics. You know, there's things about the written word. You don't want to engage in plagiarism. You don't want to be caught falsifying data and so on. So it deals with ethics. That's part of professional conduct, and also handling your student in a professional manner. Then lastly, we come to engagement and impact, where you're using your knowledge and skills to have such an impact. So here you're dealing with more with the communication and dissemination of information, or working with others. So it can be collaborations, it can be just communicating, sharing your publications and your dissertations and so on. It can be conference presentations. It can also relate to community engagement. So that is the VT framework that borders on your professional development. And one needs to look at that in the context of postgraduate supervision. How do you guide the student to develop those knowledge and intellectual abilities? How do you guide the student towards his professional development? How do you guide him towards research governance, managing the data, reporting the data, and so on. And finally, how you get him to communicate that and share that. So these are important aspects of postgraduate research supervision as well, in guiding a student at the master's and the doctoral level. Okay, so just want to go back to my slides. So it's basically that VT framework deals with researchers in higher education. So it's mostly the lecturers, the senior lecturers, the professors, and the associate professors. But it's basically guiding you on how to develop your student as well. Okay, so for one of the activities, you are required to inspect the VT framework and consider how you would use this in your final assessment of the student. So you can even use that VT framework as a guiding tool in your final handbook, okay? So you can search the VT for a useful resource that you will use in your supervision practice. Now, all of this is also building up towards that final handbook. And then in activity 2.4, it gives you an overview of the doctoral. There's a presentation on it. You can capture some notes on that, which you can use in your handbook. Now we are coming to genres, which basically deals with different styles of supervisions, different sets of characteristics that you can define, that can help you define what is a master's and what is a doctorate, right? And this genre or style of doing things that we talk about can be a contradiction to original work, because on the one hand, at PhD level, you're expecting the student to develop a competency in making an original contribution. But at the same time, if you are guiding that student and making him follow a standard style or set of characteristics, it can contradict the originality. And this is something that can vary from faculties, between faculties and disciplines. You may find that the requirements for a thesis, what goes into a thesis in the sciences, may be different for what it is in the humanities, okay? So we develop a style of doing things, right? So just to give you some historic perspectives in how they did things. So we're going back to Europe in the 1800s, where Harvard University produced their first PhD in 1921, right? But if you look at it extends even further than that. Columbia University produced the first PhD in education in 1893. So the history of where the PhD started dates back to the 1800s. And then in some countries like Tibet, you have a 9-year studies, 9 year of study, plus another 3 years, plus a 3-month retreat. And that was in the early 1100s, right? So these are genres, different styles of doing things, right? Um, you may think, okay, a PhD is only 3 to 4 years, but in other countries it's different. And just to give you an idea, the Dalai Lama undertook 21 years of study, and that's really, really long. So it's different styles or different ways of doing things, different durations as well. So basically, this brings us to now the dissertation versus the thesis. What are your genres or expectations for a dissertation and a thesis? So just to give you an idea now, the dissertation is produced at master's level. So what do you expect? What would you expect your master's student to put into his dissertation? What would a PhD student put into his thesis? Can I hear your ideas so that we can engage in some discussion on this?
Thanks, Prof. Yeah, I'm trying to reflect back on what we said about what we expect from at master's level. But what I would expect in terms of the style at a master's level, I think the student and I'm not sure if we're talking about timing and how long it takes, but I think at a master's level, the student needs to be able to reflect their understanding of literature that they have absorbed and their understanding of um, even gaps, but potentially in literature vis-a-vis perhaps academic or real world, maybe industry or social questions that must be answered. But the ability to say, this is what I've read, this is what I understood it meant, this is what I believe it contributes to, and this is where I differ even in what the literature seems to say, because I read it differently. Um, at the PhD level, but however, I think at a master's level, your voice is not entirely as authoritative. Not that it is at PhD level. In the
Mm-hmm.
Faculty of Management, they said you only have an opinion after you have your PhD, so you don't have an opinion yet.
Yeah.
So at a PhD level, I think there has to be, again, there has to be this clarity of understanding of what you read, because somebody might take a piece of literature and kind of rephrase it or try and interpret it or try and show their understanding of it, but it doesn't show any understanding. So there has to be that critical element, but the critical element comes in saying, um, even examining the research methodology. Did the methodology really answer the question that the researcher set out to answer? Did the theoretical framework that was applied, was it really the right theoretical framework and applicable, or was there a different theoretical foundation or framework that could have been applied? So I think it is a questioning, perhaps a questioning style, but not questioning for questioning. Say questioning by also presenting the insight that this reader or this writer of the PhD has on that work, with the aim of developing their position in terms of their methodology, their theoretical foundation, and their literature review that they wish to apply to the question that they wish to answer. I hope I've given some kind of indication of what I thought the two styles may be
Yeah,
different,
no,
Prof.
no, you've got it more or less right. It can be different in that sense, and also the way in which the chapters are structured. So you may say to a master's student, this is how I want you to structure the chapters: introduction, literature review, methodology, results, discussion, conclusion. Finished. For a thesis, you may say to them, okay, this is a traditional thesis, so I want to see Chapter 1, Introduction, Chapter 2, Critical Literature Review Discussion, Chapter 3, Research Methodology and Techniques, Chapters 4 to whatever is all your results from different experiments, different studies you've done, and the discussion. And the last chapter is obviously the conclusions and the recommendations. So it's different styles. It can involve the compilation of the dissertation, but also the level of discussion and the voices that are used, like you've said in yours. So it's just to guide you in terms of what you expect of a dissertation and what you expect of a thesis. Now, okay, this is not an activity anymore. It's actually an assignment. So we're going to talk about that assignment, which is, sorry, it's not due on the 2nd of May. I'll change that. Um, Okay, so let's just go back to that workbook that I'm going to show you the assignment, and I'll update the slides so that you have the correct information. So let me just share that with you. Okay, so that was the VTE framework that we spoke about a while ago. Now I just want to scroll down to the assignment that you're going to hand in for Unit 2. So basically, you're going to do a mini research project or an interview. So you're going to conduct an interview with an experienced supervisor, typically one that has supervised 2 or more doctorates to completion. So you can choose anybody in your field, right? Or if you can't get someone in your field, you can even interview your own supervisor. You're going to look at examples of kinds of issues that you're going to raise in the interview and then discuss in your assignment. For example, you will ask, what is a PhD? What is the master's? Do you judge the quality? How do you know whether you're guiding them or giving them the right skills for the different levels? What are the most important strategies or pedagogies that you would use for assisting the students at the different levels? So these are just examples of questions that you would ask that particular supervisor that you choose to interview. And you can include a brief profile of the person in your assignment. So basically, you're going to write a report of 400 to 700 words based on that interview. So you're going to provide a brief profile of the person you interview. So you'll say, Professor X got his PhD at Cambridge University. He has supervised so many masters and PhD students to completion. Then you describe what you've learned from the interview. So you ask all those questions to probe him or her and get that information. And then you're going to share the data or the information that you gathered about the experience and the perspectives of that supervisor in your assignment. You're going to relate them to your own perspectives, and you're going to draw on some literature to see if anything that's in the literature came out in that interview. So that is your assignment 2 now for Unit 2. I hope I'm not moving too fast for you. If there's anything that you need clarity on, please feel free to ask. So basically, I think I'm comfortable with you now missing Thursday because we've basically covered Unit 1 and Unit 2 and the important aspects. The important thing you need to know is you can go back now to the study material, read up the literature, do all the activities. If you have any questions, you can come back to me on it and we can discuss further. So I think I'm happy to, it's 25 past 6. We've only got 35 minutes left. So you're welcome to ask any questions that you want to. Otherwise, if you think about anything you'd like to ask, we can discuss it further via the email or whatever platform you want to use. You're welcome to set up Microsoft Teams meetings with me as well if you need any interaction. So I think I'm okay with us missing Thursday and Saturday because I'm almost halfway there. I've only got 2 more units to do with you, right? So what you can do in your free time is work through all the activities, work through the assignments for Unit 1 and Unit 2. And if you've got any questions, please feel free to email me or even you can request a Teams meeting with me and we can discuss it. Okay. Are you okay with that?
Prof, that's perfectly in order for me. Thank you.
Okay, so we can, if you've got no burning or pressing questions that you'd like to ask today, then it's fine. We can call it a day because I don't want to cover too much and jump to Unit 3 now. I think we comfortably covered Unit 1 on Saturday. We've comfortably covered Unit 2. There is obviously more information that you would get out of the literature and that study material and those activities that you're going to do as well. So I think let's call it a day here. So I won't see you on Thursday or Saturday, so it will be next Tuesday this time that we would meet. And then you can come along with any questions you'd like to ask about Unit 1 and Unit 2, the activities and the assignments. And then I would make a start with Unit 3 then next Tuesday.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you fine with that? Okay.
Yes, I'm fine with
So,
that. Thank you.
okay. Thank you very much. It's actually a pleasure working with one student, although it's disadvantageous in the sense that you're not interacting with